years, a total of nearly 600,000 refugees were allowed into the country outside the quota system, second only to Israel's 650,000. In 1950, after the start of the Korean War, the Internal Security Act barred admission of communists who might engage in activities, quote, which would be prejudicial to the public interest or would endanger the welfare or safety of the United States, end quote. In 1950, the invasion of South Korea by North Korea started the Korean War and left the war-ravaged Korea behind. There was little US immigration due to the national origin quotas of the immigration law. Significant Korean immigrations began in 1965 after revision of the law, totaling 848,000 by 2004. For more information on the Korea War, check out my previous episode. Now, in 1959, the McCarran-Walker Immigration Act affirmed the national origins quota system of 1924 and limited total annual immigration to 1/6 of the population of the continental United States in 1920, or 1,750,455. This exempted the spouses and children of US citizens and people born in the Western Hemisphere from the quota. In 1953, the Refugee Relief Act extended refugee status to non-Europeans. In 1954, Operation Wetback forced the return of 1,000 illegal immigrants to Mexico. Between 1944 and 1954, the decade of the wetback, the number of illegal immigrants coming from Mexico increased by 6,000%. It is estimated that before Operation Wetback got underway, more than 1 million workers had crossed the Rio Grande illegally. Cheap labour displaced native agricultural workers, increased violation of labour laws, discrimination encouraged criminality and disease and illiteracy. According to a study conducted in 1950 by the President's Commission on Migratory Labour in Texas, the Rio Grande Valley cotton growers were paying approximately half the wages paid elsewhere in Texas. The United States Border Patrol, aided by municipal, county, state, federal authorities and the military, began a quasi-military operation of search and seizure of illegal immigrants. Fanning out from the lower Rio Grande Valley, Operation Wetback moved northward. Initial illegal immigrants were repatriated through Presidio because the Mexican city across the border, Ojinga, had rail connections to the interior Mexico by which workers could be quickly moved on to Durango. The forces used by the government were relatively small, perhaps no more than 700 men, but were augmented by Border Patrol officials who hoped to scare illegal workers into fleeing back to Mexico. Ships became a preferred mode of transport because they carried illegal workers farther from the border than buses, trucks or trains. It is difficult to estimate the number of illegal immigrants left due to the operation. Most left voluntarily. The INS claimed as many as 1.3 million, though the number officially apprehended did not come anywhere near this total. The program ultimately abandoned due to questions surrounding the ethics of the implementation. Citizens of Mexico descendants complained of police stopping all Mexican-looking people and utilizing extreme police state methods, including deportation of American-born children who were citizens by law. The failed 1956 Hungarian Air Revolution, before being crushed by the Soviets, forged a temporary hole in the Iron Curtain that allowed a burst of refugees to escape, bringing 245,000 new Hungarian families by 1960. From 1950 to 1960, the US had 2.5 million new immigrants, with 477,000 arriving from Germany. 185,000 from Italy, 52,000 new arrivals from Netherlands, 203,000 from the UK, 46,000 from Japan and 300,000 from Mexico, with 377,000 from Canada. The 1959 Cuban Revolution, led by Fidel Castro, drove upper and middle classes to exile, with nearly 500,000 families emigrated to the US during the 1970s. This facilitated by the 1966 Cuban Adjustment Act, which gave permanent residential status to Cubans physically present in the United States for 1 year if they entered after the 1st of January 1959. Thanks for listening to this episode of the Brief History Podcast. I've been your host, Andrew Knight. This is on the US immigration history and Trump's war and the current crisis with families being ripped from their babies and deported back to their country. In the second episode, we'll talk about the Hart-Keller Act, the 1980s immigration since then, and arguments for and against on either side. We'll look at the Republican and the Democratic points of view. If you haven't already, please subscribe. It's most important. You'll get all your episodes notified when they're released. In most cases, downloaded straight for you. You don't have to do anything. They're ready for you to listen the next time you want to. So please subscribe to your listening device when you where you get your podcast from. We're on Apple and the other major podcast listening places. Please find us there. If you haven't already done so, give us a 5-star rating and a review. It's much appreciated. Please contact us, tell us what you think, give us ideas for our next episode. We're starting to run out of ideas, and we want to do episodes on what you want to hear, so please let us know. Find us on all the major social media outlets, that's Facebook, Twitter, Snapchat and Instagram. We're the B History Podcast. Like, follow, retweet, comment, friend, join the group, do what you normally do on the socials. Once again, thank you for listening to the podcast. This has been your Brief History Podcast. I'm Andrew Knight, your host. Harry Edmondson does the artwork, and he's the sound producer also. This is the Brief History Podcast. We give you the history behind the headlines. Comprehensive history, under an hour, perfect for the commute home, on your lunch break or in your precious free time, or even when you're doing your chores. We're educate and entertain. See you next week.
And there's Mike Simmons onto the forecourt, approaches the T-Rock, but picks out the Tiguan, looking at a 7-seater Tiguan all-space now. He spies the Touareg, promising, but he's leaving it late. A quick exchange with the Volkswagen salesman, and yes, Mike Simmons is the proud owner of a brand new Volkswagen Touareg.
The Volkswagen SUV event from the 1st to the 15th of July. Save £500 on top of existing offers when you test drive any SUV. Just make sure you get there before the final whistle.
Offer available on the retail on the road price for Volkswagen SUVs when test driven and ordered between 1st and 15th July. Delivered by 15th August 2018. Except the new Touareg, which is to be delivered by 31st October 2018. Retail customers only.